opinion, in the MCU, do you think Spider Man and Venom will ever cross over?
Ooh.
That would be sick.
Just in your opinion, not asking for any spoilers.
Tom's thinking so hard.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
As Tom's
for legal reasons, I cannot answer that question.
plead the fifth.
Ooh.
Welcome back, everyone. Happy New Year. If you're watching this video, you made it to 2021. You survived 2020. Congratulations. This is going to be my new Spider-Man 3 and Venom crossover video. It wouldn't be the new year if Tom Holland weren't trying to spoil some things about the big Venom Spider-Man crossover that Sony and Marvel have planned. I also have some Thor 4 stuff as well, because not to be left out, Tom Holland also did a separate Instagram live stream with Chris Pratt where they spoiled some stuff from Thor 4. It wasn't a huge spoiler, but it was really funny. So if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. There's going to be a lot of Spider-Man stuff happening really soon because they're going to be filming outdoors. So hopefully we'll get a better look at some of the Spider-Verse stuff that's been rumored so far. This is that clip of them talking about Thor 4. Watch Tom Holland's reaction to what Chris Pratt is saying. It's actually pretty funny.
I've got Guardians coming up
Awesome.
next year, and I've got Thor. I'm going to go be in Thor in Australia, so I'll be traveling to Australia in about a week. And
But wait a minute, did you just say you're going to be in Thor?
yeah,
That's so crazy. Did it?
am I not supposed to say that?
I feel like no one knew that, bro.
No, they knew that. They knew that. I think they knew that. No, they knew that. If they didn't, they know now. Oh shit.
Well, they know now.
I love the way that Chris Pratt tries to save face during that. I'll talk about the Spider-Man Venom crossover stuff first that Tom Holland was mentioning, then I'll talk about the Thor 4 stuff, because we also did find out about other Guardians of the Galaxy characters that will be in Thor 4. But if you don't know what's going on, earlier last week, Tom Holland did a special Instagram Q&A for the charity that he started, and during that, fans were asking him about crossing over with the Venom character. Obviously, we all know how that's going to go down, because we know that it's happening, we just don't know when it's going to happen or how it's going to happen. You notice, though, that the question that he's asked is about Venom coming into the MCU, which is much more specific. And of course, that hilarious look on his face as he gets really quiet and starts thinking, you can see the gears turning in his head, and then he responds slowly with, "I legally can't say anything," means he knows exactly what the plan is for crossing MCU Spider-Man over with Tom Hardy's Venom, and how they're going to address that in the MCU movies. Way back 84 years ago in 2019, when Sony and Marvel signed the new sharing deal for the Spider-Man character in the 2 new Spider-Man movies, one of those was Spider-Man 3, which they're filming right now, and then the mystery crossover MCU movie, which is probably going to wind up being Doctor Strange 2, it was reported that part of the terms of that new sharing deal also explained how all the crossovers were going to work in the cameo scenes, with Venom, the other Spider-Man characters that Sony controls. Because Sony ultimately wants to use Tom Holland's Spider-Man in its Venomverse spin-off movies. Not just the Venom movies like Venom 2, but Morbius, the other movies, the Black Cat movie that they announced. They also announced a Kraven the Hunter movie. They're probably going to try and do more Sinister 6 spin-off franchises like they're setting them up in the MCU. And of course, there are all the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movies. Just because they're animated, you still have to negotiate special terms for a contract to have Tom Holland appear in those. But before they'd made that new deal, Marvel and Kevin Feige reportedly didn't want to have anything to do with the movies that they didn't have complete creative control over. Because before Spider-Verse became this big home run and everybody loved it so much, the more recent Sony movies had been pretty hit or miss. Even though we actually found out that Kevin Feige gave them some notes on some of their movies, like he gave them notes on the Venom movie, he didn't really have any say in how all that stuff went. So obviously they just wanted to keep all that stuff away from the MCU. Like, do whatever you want to do with the characters you have control over, but we don't want to deal with it. But because Sony owns the rights to the live-action Spider-Man, technically, it put Marvel in a weird place during this renegotiation for their contract. And after the new deal was announced, Kevin Feige confirmed that MCU Spider-Man would be the first quote-unquote MCU character to travel between what he was calling cinematic universes. Just a sort of multiverse joke because the multiverse is such a huge deal during the upcoming Marvel Phase 4 movies. Like, that'll all start with the WandaVision episodes in a couple weeks, so we'll talk more about how the multiverse is going to play into Marvel Phase 4 real soon. If you go back and you read some of those articles about the new sharing deal, the way they talk about the current plan for dealing with MCU and Sony Spider Man spin-off movie continuity is that the Sony movies like Venom 2 and Morbius, any other big spin-off movies, are allowed to reference any of the MCU Marvel movies that feature Spider-Man. That means they can include any kind of Easter eggs or scenes or callbacks that they want, like Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man Far From Home, Captain America Civil War, Avengers Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame. As you would expect, though, the limit on that is that they can only use the Spider-Man stuff from those movies that are specific to his character. Like Iron Man can't suddenly appear in Venom 2, but they can reference the snap, the end of Spider-Man Far From Home with his identity being outed by Mysterio. Obviously, J. Jonah Jameson is a big Sony character. They're kind of riffing on the version from the Tobey Maguire movies. Then you have all the Mysterio stuff. He's a big Sinister 6 character. They can reference anything about Mysterio that they want, and he's kind of tangentially related to Iron Man, so they're kind of referencing the Avengers stuff through the Spider-Man character. And on the other side of that, Marvel is allowed to reference anything they want from the Sony movies when Tom Holland's character is involved. So if they wanted to, they can use the Venom character in the MCU movies, or they can just use Easter eggs and references. But the whole reason for this weird system that they have of referencing each other's movies in the MCU and the Sony Spider-Verse or the Venomverse, whatever you want to call it, is that if they want to, they can make it seem like it's all happening on the same Earth, and it still makes sense that Venom isn't running around the Avengers all the time. But there is so much Spider-Verse stuff that's rumored in Spider-Man 3 with all these other characters from the Andrew Garfield movies and from the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies that it also kind of seems like the Multiverse Explainer is an even easier way to explain all this crossover. Like they could just say that Venom takes place on a different Earth and Sony can do whatever they want to with Spider-Man in those movies, and when he comes back into the MCU Earth in future Spider-Man movies, they never have to speak of Venom if they don't want to. Talking about all the Thor 4 Guardians of the Galaxy crossover stuff, thank you very much Tom Holland and Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt trying to join the spoiler bros in the MCU. They've already started working on Thor 4 down in Australia. All the Thor characters have been there for a while filming, but recently you may have seen all the news about the Guardians of the Galaxy characters coming and going to film their scenes. And it seems like a much bigger crossover than I was expecting. I was really just expecting a minor cameo with maybe like 1 or 2 characters on board one of their ships while Thor is leaving to go back to planet Earth. But right now, with Chris Pratt confirming that Peter Quill's in the movie, the Guardians that we know are going to be in there are Peter Quill, Groot, because Vin Diesel was spotted on set late last year, and he's the one that initially leaked the news, accidentally spoiled things that the Guardians would be in Thor 4 and Thor would be in Guardians 3. But Mantis was also spotted on set, and I don't know about Rocket, but I'm assuming that Rocket would probably be there too. Like, they wouldn't put Groot in the movie and then not also put Rocket there, because they tend to show up together. But the way things are going with all these characters, it seems like pretty much all the Guardians are in there. Mostly that's because Thor left with them at the end of Avengers Endgame. There will be a small time jump, obviously, so that we can see Thor again being super swole. He won't be Fat Thor anymore, for those that are wondering. Chris Hemsworth has been posting workout videos for the entire past year, just getting super ripped. And earlier this year, Taika Waititi also did a big live stream with the cast of Thor 4, revealing a whole bunch of concept art and teasers. During that, he also mentioned that the whole joke about Thor being fat was kind of overplayed at this point, and he wasn't planning on continuing that. Like, we did that already. We're not going to do that again in another movie. I did a whole video for all those big reveals and teasers, so I'll post a link to that in the description below. Back at the Disney investor meeting when they were dropping all the trailers, they finally confirmed my theory that Christian Bale is playing Gore the God Butcher. That is going to be some top-tier action right there. And they've kind of turned Thor 4 into their next mini Avengers movie with all the crossovers. Like, if Avengers Endgame was Avengers 4, then Thor 4 seems like it's going to be Avengers 4.5 in the way that Captain America Civil War was kind of like Avengers 2.5. Tessa Thompson confirmed that there were going to be a bunch of big Avengers characters crossing over. She didn't say exactly which ones, just that there would be a bunch of Avengers showing up in the movie. So that's why it feels like it's going to be a big Avengers level event. I'll do more Thor 4 videos when we get more news about that. Obviously, there'll be a ton more Spider-Man stuff dropping really soon, too. But the next really big thing that I'll be doing videos for are the Marvel WandaVision episodes. That starts in less than 2 weeks, so make sure you have alerts enabled for my channel so you don't miss any of those. Next Friday, there will be some special episodes for a series called Marvel Legends. That's meant to be like a WandaVision prequel, so whatever that winds up being, I'll do episode videos for that. There's so much big Marvel stuff coming in 2021, it's all going to be really, really cool. Everyone, click here for that brand new WandaVision trailer and Doctor Strange 2 Easter eggs, and click here to watch Mark Hamill reacting to Luke Skywalker in The Mandalorian Season 2. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe, and Happy New Year.